Hi everyone, it's Lisa and Luna from Don't Run with Scissors, back with another Technique Tuesday video. Continuing on the lines of gelatos, this is part 2. Last week I did an introduction to gelatos, what you can do with them, how to use them, what they're like. For those of you that didn't get to see it or should go back and watch it, gelatos are a water-soluble gel pigment, and they're very creamy and they're like lipstick. I wouldn't recommend trying it for lipstick, but you can do all sorts of crazy things with them between watercolors and coloring, backgrounds, stamped images, embossed images, all sorts of fun stuff. But today I wanted to show you actually how to use gelatos in your stamping. And here I have a normal piece of cardstock here. I believe it's, well, let's just double check the poundage real quick. The 110-pound white cardstock, and then this is a watercolor sheet of paper, cold press, 90 pound I believe, 96 pound, so it's just on the lighter side. But I wanted to show you how to use it with your stamps, and I have a generic stamp here. It usually works nice with the solids, not so much the intricate detail, depends on how much you like it to come out or not. And I'm going to do it on 2 sheets of paper, so just bear with me so you can see how each stamp does react with the gelatos. So basically on this, there's about 4 different ways to get color from here to here to make it look like this stamp. And we're going to start first by actually making it into a watercolor. So I'm going to use the green, use this green, and then we'll color it. Let's do purple just for the contrast. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to use the gelato as it is, lipstick, put it out a little bit, and I'm just going to color right on top of that stamp. I'm going to try not to get into the petal too much, but it might happen. And you can go in with your finger and just clean that up. A baby wipe also works. So, got the green down. And I'm going to color the center of the flower purple just to keep the video moving along. So it's St. Patrick's Day. Hope everybody's having a good day at home. So this is colored. It's covered purple and green. And one way to get the color from here to there is that won't transfer by itself. I'll show you just the mess. It's not, it just doesn't come off very well. So what you can do is take a spray bottle and lightly mist over it. And you can go to your stamp to your paper. And you will see a nice light. Remember, gelatos are gonna, the colors aren't going to be as bright because they do thin out when you add the water. So that is just one layer. So now let's go back here. Paper towel real quick. Just so I can wipe the moisture. I just want to keep the moisture off a little bit. But I am going to go back and color. Same colors. We're going to do it, this time we're going to do it on watercolor paper. Use the right side, be even better. Okay, so now we'll mist it again. And you can kind of see how it gets a little glossy. And that's what you're looking for. And now we're going to do it right on the watercolor paper. So you can see the difference. A little bit brighter because you do have the watercolor paper that's going to react with that water. So that's the first way to handle this. I'm going to clean my stamp off. This next way, I'm not so sure it's going to work with a large stamp. Maybe with a small stamp it would. Depends on how much hot air you have in your system, because they tell you that you can just huff and puff on it, which should add some moisture to the stamp. So we're going to color it in real quick, and we'll give this huffing, I didn't color so good in the lines on this one, we'll give huffing a technique here. So I'm going to go off camera. And you can go have an asthma attack while you're doing it. And there you go. Maybe a little bit of residual water left on that one. I should wipe it off a little better. So we'll go back, clean that water off, and now we'll try it on the watercolor paper. Go for the green. And off camera. And there you have it on the watercolor paper. It does work, not as bright. So that's the second way to do it. Another way depending on how much watercolor you actually want to do, is to actually stamp, actually mist the stamp first. So now we're going to water the stamp. We're going to go in and color. You can see that it goes on a lot smoother because it's already breaking down the color in the gelato stack. And we'll go right to the regular cardstock. And look how dark that is. And I think there's enough water on here to try to go to the watercolor paper. So we'll go to the watercolor paper. And there's the two different, how they're coming off. And then the very last technique, let's clean this off again. We're using these. Is to actually color it in. So I'm gonna color it in dry again. Going with the green. This time we're going to spray the paper. So you're going to mist your paper without trying to do that. Stamp on the cardstock. Make sure we have the water. And then we'll go back to the watercolor paper. Spray the watercolor paper. I'm going to run out of room here. Oh, we'll get the gist of it. And you can see what spraying on the paper does. So the two here. So they actually look very similar. Again, this is the cardstock, so it's not going to take water as well as watercolor paper does when it's dry. It's going to curl up a little bit, but you can keep that flat, tape it down, and you'd be just fine. So you can see the two different methods of actually stamping right on your gelato, and what you can do to get that transferred color right on your paper. They're beautiful. They're super fun to work with. And we are going to move on to actually coloring in an image. So instead of just using it on a stamp, now we're actually going to use it to color in an image. So let's just clean up real quick here. Give this a spray. Gelatos come off with water. Nothing special needed for these. We'll go back in after. Actually, I think that's not so bad. Okay, so now, if you have a stamped image, I've already done 4 stamped images. I have my rose here, and I did use StazOn ink to keep that down. And we're going to do 2 different coloring methods. We're going to do dry and then wet. So I have my rose. I'm going to pull out some reds and pinks and some late green. So there's 2 ways to do painting. And when I say dry, that's actually not the best description. You can actually scribble right over, and then you can fussy cut out your image afterwards. So I have my green down. We're going to add a little bit more to it. Add some depth. So you can scribble right in. So we'll do my pinks. The dark areas on the stamp are the darker areas you tend to hit the color, darker colors. And you just scribble all over. Going with some pink. That's a bright pink, huh? This is bubblegum. Bubblegum it is. Go in, and you can layer these. The colors do not transfer back and forth. Understand. Of course they colored outside the line. So, and then take a sponge or your finger, and you can just start blending in the colors. Or you can sponge it. All work very well. That's not pink, so try to keep your color families together. The color will transfer on those things. So there's that. Add a little bit of red in here, just in those areas. These will layer. You can go back in and be as fussy as you want. And then once you cut that out, you have one solid image. Again, you could use a baby wipe, which is where we're going to go next. Okay, so now if we were going to do this one, same kind of technique, but do it wet, you just do exactly the same thing. You're going to scribble in. Scribble, scribble. And because you're going to paint, I'm actually going to put less color on the paper. I want to keep the concentrate where it is, because it is going to flow once you add some water to it. Okay. These paintbrushes do come with the set, so I have some water offside. And all you're going to do is you can just go right on over the image. And the color is going to break down once you start adding the water. You don't need a lot of water. And you just make sure your image is colored into where you want it to be. Dab that real quick. And come in with the green. Of course, I just added red in there, huh? Not thinking. Can always fix your mistakes with gelatos. Add a little more pink down here. Okay, so that's another thing you can do. Again, doing this on watercolor paper, you can start seeing this one down here is bubbling a little. So if you tape it down, it won't dry out as much. But if you did it on watercolor paper, again, it would do the same thing, but it's just going to, the colors are going to move around that much better. So again, this is regular 110 cardstock, 110 pound cardstock. So the other options we have is you can actually turn this into a paint palette. And you can use your craft mat. You can scribble right on it. And lift the color with your paintbrush. So you make your own palette, and I showed you last week that you can do it on a craft mat. You could do it on a stamper's block as well. And you can either spray each color this way, or you can just turn it into a canvas yourself. And you can come in and just actually color in with the layers of the colors. And this way you can actually color in right in the lines. You have way more control than being all squirrely all over here. And you just do a really nice job getting in each of the lines. Probably you could pick up a nice thin paintbrush. Actually, the edge on these ones is quite nice to work with. And you can just follow each of the stamp lines. Again, those little black marks mean it should be a heavier color, darker color. And then you can just keep layering. And pulling in the color. So it's all in how fussy you want to get, what colors you want to do. Coloring in the lines. I'm getting sloppy. And you could very well use your fingers or the crayons themselves, the gelatos themselves, to color in each line. But you can see how tedious that would be with how thick these stamps are, or the thickness of these gelatos are, and as thin as the stamped image is. Faber-Castell also makes what they call a double scoop, and it's a chubby, very chubby gelato. So you can cover more area. So like we were doing last week with the backgrounds, you just cover more area more quickly. There's no difference in the colors, and there's no difference in the quality or texture of it. So there you go. You have your stamped image. And now we'll do the green leaves real quick and go over the top one. So you can see painting is really diluting the color. You can keep layering. It won't get much darker or as dark as up there. And if you were to come in like we did all these other ones and be very fussy, you could take the layer and color right in each of those and then take your finger and move the color around. But you're not going to be able to color in the lines nearly as well as painting using the color in there. So you can be using the edge of the lipstick. You know, people always put the lipstick on the same way and then they make those creases. That drives me crazy. But that's how you could do the dry. It's very tedious, very time consuming. So not exactly my favorite thing to do, but that is how you can color in stamped images. You can do total scribble, use a sponge or your finger to blend it all in. You can come in and do the same thing but add water and turn it into a watercolor. You can actually individually paint each petal, making a palette of gelatos to the side, or you can be very, very fussy and start painting them in that way. But either way, it makes a great color. It makes a great addition. If you fussy cut this out, you could add that right to the front of your card, do some pop-up dots, take Wink of Stella and add some sparkle to it, and that would make a beautiful card. So until next time, thank you for tuning in, and see you next week for part 3.